First and foremost, I just want to thank each and every one of you for taking the next 45 minutes out of your very busy schedules to join me here today for this month's Accelerate Series webinar, which is going to be on interactive reports and creating deliverables and asset map. Our primary focus today will be taking you through the different interactive reports we have in the application and ultimately how to compile these into a deliverable format that you can provide to your clients, but I'm also going to pepper in some hidden gems. One of the biggest questions that often gets asked is this being recorded? Yes, it is. And we will make that recording to you available post-event. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I want to take a moment by introducing myself for those that I have not had the pleasure of meeting yet. My name is LiaJean McHenry. I am our Senior Training Manager over here at AssetMap. I'm fortunate enough to do a lot of our office onboarding. I host a lot of training and events throughout AssetMap, and I host these Accelerate Series webinars. Every month, it's typically the third or fourth Thursday of the month, I'll host an Accelerate series on a different topic. So if today is your first time joining us and you like today's training, trust me, there's lots of recordings of other ones that I've done as well. As we continue to innovate and bring in new technology and features and functionality, we just continue to develop new material to take you all through. And so it's likely that if you're looking for training on any areas of our application, it's possible I've already done an Accelerate series on that, and I'll show you where you can find those past recordings in just a couple moments. Now, like I said, during today's training, we're going to be focusing on everything to do with reports in Asset Map. So we're going to talk about some of the interactive reports that are available in each household. We'll talk about how you build deliverables. I'm going to actually download a comprehensive report and take you through each report so that you can see visually what it looks like, because there are a couple reports where you might wonder, well, what even fuels this report? Like, where do I go to enter that data for it to appear on this report? And so I'll point those out today. I'm also going to cover some hidden gem reports, a couple reports that are not found in the reports section of each household, but might be useful to you. And so I'll point those out as well. All right. All throughout our training today, I always point out support and resources that you can count on moving forward. This is being recorded, and if you have questions, the best place to submit them is in the chat feature in Zoom. So if you just open up the chat, you can type it there. Also, I may ask you to interact with me throughout today's training. I might ask a question or populate a poll. Please indulge me. It means a lot, and otherwise I feel like I'm talking to myself. So I would very much appreciate it. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Where we're going to begin today is we're going to start within a household. So I've prepared a household for today's training, and I'm going to navigate and search for that household and go there. Okay. In every household that you click into, depending on your settings, you may have it set up so that it takes you here to the household summary page. Okay. This is what the household summary page will look like. This is the highest level of a household. Your menu might be expanded like this, or it might be condensed. Okay, you can expand or condense your menu as you see fit. From the household summary page, all the tiles that you see here are clickable, so you can click into those respective sections from this view. But you can also use your main menu on the left and you can navigate into those sections as well. So we're going to spend a lot of time in reports, and we're going to talk about these interactive reports in just a moment. Now, for some of you, you may have changed your user preferences so that when you click into a household, it starts you here automatically on their asset map report. Now, if some of you are like, what are you even referencing? Well, let's talk about that. If you haven't adjusted your user preferences, then when you click into a household, it'll always be this view, the household summary page. But this was a long-standing ask from financial professionals. They said, listen, it'd be really nice if instead of whenever we click into a household, instead of starting us here, because this is available anytime by clicking the house icon or where it says household, what if instead we started on the asset map report? You can actually change this permission through your main menu on the upper right-hand side and under your user preferences section. Okay, if you click into user preferences here, which I'm actually going to right click my mouse and open this in a new tab. And the reason for that is because I don't want to lose our spot. So if I open up that other tab in your user preferences section, if you scroll down, there's some application settings here, some global defaults. And there's this little setting right here that says default household start page. If you leave it set to default, it'll be the household summary page. If you make it set to asset map, then it means every time you click into a household, it'll start you on their asset map report instead. If you make that change, just make sure you click update to save. Figured I'd point it out. It's a little bit of a hidden gem, and I wanted to show that to you today as well. Okay. Question came into the chat, which of these views can the client see? You're referencing the client portal. The client portal we will not cover today, but really the only view that the clients would see when they log into their client portal is their homepage will have their map front and center up at the top. It has a couple of their key financial figures, and then depending on what permissions you give them, they may have access to see some other areas. Okay. If you have questions about the client portal, feel free to click the chat bubble here. You can click support. That opens up our support center at any time. You can search here in the knowledge base, type in client portal, and it'll give you some videos and some screenshots so that you can preview and see that if you like. I also hosted a webinar not that long ago on the client portal. So if you wanted to find some of the past Accelerate series I've hosted, you can click here where it says search for help. Simply type in the word accelerate or type in, Accelerate series, whatever it is, you just type it in. One of these will populate. You'll click on the first option that says Accelerate series webinars, and it'll take you to where you can find the previous ones. And then from there will be a full list, a table of contents of all the ones that I've hosted this year, last year, and then I even archive some of the ones for beyond that if you're looking for even additional information. So hopefully that's helpful for you. Okay, so let's talk about reports because that's the purpose of our training today. So in our main menu of every single household, there's actually 3 interactive reports that you may or may not have glanced over. The first one is the balance sheet report. Okay, the balance sheet report is fed from everything that's entered on the asset map report, or if you came into the members and financials tiles, because if you're not familiar, you can either be on the map, use your actions menu to manually add pieces of information, right? Or the quick actions menu where you right click your mouse and you can, quickly add some information. Okay. From this view, by the way, if you ever just want like a quick printout of this report, like for you to like scribble and take some notes on, you can just right click your mouse and click generate PDF. You can do the same thing in your actions menu, click generate PDF. It'll just generate this one PDF. Okay. This will say internal use only at the top because there's no cover page, no disclosure language. So really this would just kind of be for internal use, or if you're permitted to use it in client meetings, I'll leave that to you and your compliance teams. But whenever you're going to want to actually build a deliverable to have the necessary disclosure, disclaimer language, have that necessary cover page, you're going to build them here in the overall report center, which we'll get to in just a couple moments. Now, based off of the information that's been added into this household, we have 3 interactive reports. Number 1 is the balance sheet. The balance sheet will break out the assets by type. So we'll have retirement assets, followed by non-retirement, followed by real estate, liabilities, insurance, cash value, if any at all. And then down below, we'll give their net worth. Okay. This report is interactive, meaning that up along the top, you can change which members and entities will be included. So if I turn everybody on, it will put those individuals and entities names along the top, and it'll illustrate any, who it's tied to. So any of the retirement assets, it would put who the owners are, it would mark accordingly. Obviously, you can see that for Mimi Jetson, Barry, the business partner in the business, I don't have all the data entered for them yet. That's why we're seeing a lot of this being left blank. But the interactive report can also be a great way for you to check your work, find little areas that you might need to update. But this can especially be powerful in presentations where, if we're on their map, they might say, well, what's my overall net worth, right? Because these numbers are not going to illustrate their overall net worth. But what you can do is you can flip down to the balance sheet and you can have it be selected to just the primary client and spouse, right? And then you'd be able to scroll down and show them their overall net worth here, okay? You'll notice that you can't click into the sections here. This is simply just an interactive report. If you wanted to download this PDF one-off for your records to, scribble, take notes, you can use the PDF button here. Again, more often than not, if you're gonna provide a deliverable, you're gonna build the deliverable itself in the report section. because the balance sheet, while this is interactive here in this view, in the report section itself, we scroll down, there's also the same balance sheet here. Now, this is just a static report. So you select that you want to include the report, and then similar to the interactive report, how you can toggle certain names of members and entities on and off, you can decide in your deliverable for this balance sheet, do you want everyone included on it? You might say, no, I only want the primary client and spouse, for example. Okay, so that's why when you select the drop down for the balance sheet, it lets you pick which members and entities. Okay, now look here, down below, we have another one. It's called the policy summary report. The policy summary report in a static deliverable will just be the report printout, but you can pick the different members and entities that you want featured on it, and you can pick and isolate down to a specific type of insurance. This is the same policy summary report that is the interactive policy summary report on the left-hand side of your menu. When you click into the policy summary report, the interactive view, same thing up along the top. We can isolate one person at a time. We can turn everybody on if we wanted to. We can isolate just down to 2 people. We could even say, I only want to look at just life insurance and turn the rest of those sections off. And now we're isolating and we're just talking about life insurance, or maybe I just want to talk about disability insurance, or I just want to talk about long-term care. Hey, there's no long-term care. Are we aware of this? Let's have a conversation. So I can turn on all the different types of insurance, or I can isolate it down. Now, this interactive report, again, is great for when we want to isolate or have some insurance conversations of here's what you have currently, here's where I'm seeing a little bit of a gap. Of course, to support any type of recommendation that you might want to use, that's where you're going to really leverage target maps. If you're not leveraging target maps, I would suggest that you start. Target maps are powerful for illustrating, are you on track for goals? And, in those what if scenarios, even if you have a plan in place, is the plan that you have in place going to work for you? Target maps are where you can quantify and mathematically show people whether or not they're on track. And if they're not, you can come up with recommendations to layer it in to show the power of the decisions that we might want to, inspire them to make. And I will be doing more trainings on target maps coming up in the next couple of months. So stay tuned and keep a lookout for the next Accelerate series webinar. I am going to make an intention to focus on some of our analysis tools. Okay. Now, the third and final interactive report that we have is the beneficiaries report. So in the report section itself, we have a static report called the beneficiary report. Now, this is interesting because the beneficiary report itself is one report per person. Because think about it, if this primary client passes away, who are the beneficiaries to his assets? If the spouse was to pass away, who are the beneficiaries to her assets? Same thing with the grandmother, same thing with the son. So with the beneficiary report itself, when we choose to include it as part of our comprehensive deliverable, we have to decide, whom do we want to have individual reports for to show in their beneficiaries, which in this case, maybe we just want to isolate it down to the primary client and spouse to start that conversation. One report for Neil, if he was to pass away, who are the beneficiaries to his assets, and one report for Lauren. Okay, that's the static view, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a little bit. But in the interactive beneficiary report, very similar to the others, you can isolate and toggle between the names of the members. Now with this report, you can only look at one person at a time. So you're not going to be able to toggle everybody on or everybody off, because we're saying if Neil passes away today, okay, these are things that he has under unearned income, right? Is there anybody assigned? Looks like no, they're both unassigned, meaning there's no beneficiaries that have been selected, okay? Under assets, he's got some retirement assets, some non-retirement assets. You'll notice that there's only a couple of things that have been assigned. There's quite a few things that are unassigned, meaning there's no beneficiary that has been selected. You can check your work because you might say, well, in some of these cases, these are jointly owned, right? So it defaults to know that it's going to go to the spouse. But like for something, for example, like this old 401k at Schwab, like who's the beneficiary of this? It might and should be his wife in this example. You can click into the instrument itself it auto takes you into the details tab where you have to select the beneficiary. And this is where I could check my work and I could say, okay, Lauren's the beneficiary and the son Barry is the contingent. Okay, I could scroll down and I can click update, and that is now going to be properly reflected here. We're going to see that the old 401k, it's no longer unassigned, and it is now going to the primary beneficiary. Now you may ask, well, do the contingent beneficiaries as of today appear on the interactive beneficiary report and the report printout? As of today, not. It does not. That being said, our product team is exploring potentially implementing that in the future. And if you would like to see that, like if you say, no, I want to see contingent beneficiary on the beneficiary reports as well, then what you can do is just click your main menu on the upper right and please type that feedback directly to our product team so that we can share that. Okay, great question. The beneficiary report is not only for retirement, it's also for all other items. So you can see there's non-retirement accounts, there's real estate accounts, there's even liabilities, even insurance. Okay, so it'll be for all assets that have a beneficiary that have been applied. Okay, so life insurance, liabilities, and in terms of assets, it's not going to just be retirement. There'll be non-retirement and real estate. Hopefully that answers your question. Now, for many of you in the application, we've recently made a minor enhancement, and I shouldn't call it a minor enhancement. I should call it a really fantastic enhancement, which is we've implemented a new feature called the beneficiary visualization. Now, for some of you, when you log in, you're not going to see this. That means that you're one of our enterprise clients, and that just means anytime we make an enhancement, we have to go through proper compliance approval. And so it's likely that if you don't see it, I've already submitted to your compliance team and I'm just waiting for final approval. And once we get it approved, we'll send out a communication or an in-app message to let everybody know. Okay, so don't panic if you don't see it. It likely just means that you're one of our enterprise clients and that we're still under compliance review. But one of the big things that people have been asking us for is they love this beneficiary report, not only the static version, but really this interactive version so that you can kind of start those estate planning conversations. But sometimes it's nice to visualize it in a different way. That's why now on the upper right, okay, if you have the visualization, there's going to be this little toggle where you can toggle to the visualization view. And it simply just changed the way of you looking at things. So again, you can only look at one person at a time. But what this does is if I select Neil on the left, it tells me anything that's unassigned. And then if there's anything that's been assigned, it lets me know. Lets me know that $0 of unearned income has been assigned to Lauren Jetson as a beneficiary, right? And I can click this and it expands. And I can say like, who's the beneficiary of this rental income? Like who's the beneficiary of, Social Security, if it's applicable. And you can click right into the instruments themselves here and you can make that beneficiary, right? You can come in here and you can put who the beneficiary would be. And then from there, you can mark like who the contingent beneficiary would be. And then you can go ahead and click update. Again, it's not going to show the contingent beneficiaries as of today. It'll only show the primary beneficiary. But this visualization is really powerful because it allows you to just view this information in another way. Everything unassigned is on the left, okay? And then you'll have the ability to assign it out appropriately. And that way you can mark accordingly. So you can see these things listed here. Okay, so just know that this is a really great new enhancement that we've made. As of today, this is not available in terms of a visualization printout. Perhaps that could be something that we make available in the future. And again, if you're wondering, how do I get to this visualization? In a household, you come to the interactive beneficiary report. It'll be here. Okay, it'll look like this. And then on the upper right, you just click this little icon that looks like 3 little square boxes. It's the visualization. You click on that and it simply just changes the view. Same exact information, just a different way of looking at it to be able to have interactive conversations. And again, I can switch to Lauren. It shows me everything that's unassigned, and then I can assign things properly. Like for example, if I click into an asset, let's say that this inheritance would actually go to her son, for example, I can mark the son would be the beneficiary. I click update, and then it's going to even add another section here. Oops, of course, it gives me an error. Sorry about that. But in theory, it'll take you to that section so that as you make that update, it'll add the necessary beneficiaries in so that you can see it listed there. Okay. Again, if you do not see that section, it means that you are an enterprise client and it's likely under compliance review. That would be the only instance of why you would not see it. So if you come into a household and you don't see this section, do not panic. I promise. I always do my best to get things approved as quickly as possible, but sometimes I have to wait until I get final approval. Okay. And then for questions that are coming in regarding integrations, most of our integrations do not pull over the beneficiaries. So a lot of that is manual that you'll have to like assign the beneficiaries yourself. An easy way to check that is you can take a look at a household where you've integrated some assets from one of the integrations and you can check to see if the beneficiaries were assigned in the details tab. I don't believe we have any integrations that do that automatically. So all that means is either from this view, you need to click in and assign, or again, from the map view, you can click into any of the instruments and you can click into the details tab and you can just make sure that there's a beneficiary that has been assigned. Okay, so those are the 3 interactive reports that we have available in the application. Again, all 3 of these interactive reports are available as static reports as well when you come into the report section to build. Okay, as of today, contingent beneficiaries do not flow through to any of the reports. All right, so I'm just addressing that for the group. Again, if you'd like to see that in the future, our product team is aware of it, and I have put in a request that we make that enhancement that they do flow through. As of today, they do not. But if you would also like to see contingent beneficiaries on reports, please log in, click your main menu on the upper right and submit that feedback. That will support what I have submitted to our product team, and that'll just make them aware that there are others that are asking for the same thing. Okay. All right. Now that we've talked about the 3 interactive reports, we've talked about that contingent beneficiaries do not flow through to reports as of today. We've talked about that if you don't see the beneficiary visualization, this is likely the fact that you're an enterprise client and it'll be made available to you in the future. Okay, hopefully, or have it under compliance review. Now, when we're ready to actually build deliverables to give this to a client, either in the meeting as a talking point, or this is a follow-up post meeting to summarize everything you talked about, or maybe you're creating a deliverable and sending it off pre-meeting to kind of tee up what you're going to discuss. Either way, anytime you want to build a deliverable, you got to do it in the report section. Now, the system default when you come here will be your asset map cover page. Okay, so that's going to be your cover page. It'll have your dedicated logo that's been like approved for you to use or that you've added in if applicable. And then we default on the asset map report default. Now, the asset map report default is simply this view. Okay, primary client next to spouse, their jointly owned assets down below, insurance up top, and anything they have on their respective sides. We start with their cash flow income sources first, followed by their individual assets. Okay, so in terms of deliverable, that's going to be the view, but that's the default. Now, if you recall, you can also, on the asset map report itself, change which members and entities are isolated to be seen in the middle. And you can save these selections. You're not saving a static view of like what the accounts look like. You're saving which members and entities are selected to be featured in the middle. And then you can also include these as part of your deliverable. So let's say, for example, that I want to put Neil side by side next to his mother because, God forbid, she has a long-term care event. Who's going to pay for that? I'll need to kind of know at least some rough numbers of what she has in terms of assets, because if the expense is going to fall on him, that could significantly impact goals that we're planning for. So what I might want to do is save this selection so that when I go to build my deliverable, I can not only have the asset map report default view, which is this, but another asset map report with Neil side by side next to his mother. To save this selection, I simply have to have my selection up at the top. Anything outlined with the gray box means it's checked on. And then I can right click my mouse, click layout. Okay. If I've created any, you'll see them listed here. So you can see I've already created this view, but I'll show you that if we were creating it from scratch, you would say save current layout. It'll remind you who and what's been selected in that save selection, and then you give it a name. The name here does not appear on the report printout, but the name should be specific enough so that you don't get confused. So I always kind of like to put people's names. So I would put like Neil plus Mimi, for example. Okay, so that's what I would do, and I would click create layout. Once I save that layout, I like to switch it back to the default view. Then when I go to the report section, underneath the asset map report default would be any of those additional saved layouts. So in this deliverable, I might want the cover page, the asset map report default, and then that asset map report with just Neil side by side next to his mother. Okay. Signals, what feeds the signals report here? It's going to be this exact view. So it simply takes a screenshot of their signals and the colors associated with them in that moment, and that will be available in a report format. Now, if you're not leveraging signals, I would hope that you would start, simply because signals give you permission to explore further. They also help you gather missing information because the asset map report fuels signals. So if we're missing data, a lot of their signals might be red or yellow because we simply just don't have all their details. Just because something's green doesn't mean they would be 100% successful. Think about this section like, does it appear that you may have some funding that could be used to fund these life events in the event that they take place? Green does not mean 100%. Okay, I think green gets triggered if they hit above like 60. I don't know about you, but 60% is not 100%. So just because something's green doesn't mean we're going to ignore it, but maybe the areas in yellow and red, because those might be the most problematic to start, maybe we start with those. Think of this like the triage center. Okay, so this can be a really powerful report to include in our deliverables because we can say, listen, we leverage a screening tool. We will always be looking out for you on the back end. Okay, as we update your information, these will update as well, but this allows us to see, are you on track if unfortunately some of these life events take place? There's a couple areas that are populating in red and in yellow. Don't worry though, I think that could partially be because we're still missing some information. It's vital that we gather those missing pieces so that we can accurately plan for you. Or you reach out to a client where you know all their data and you say, listen, we've invested in a screening tool and it lets us know if there's any areas that might be of immediate concern. I saw something. I wanted to share with you what I have found. Let's schedule some time to just have a quick conversation about it, right? That can open doors to further financial planning. Underneath the signals report, we do default on all target maps that you've created. Now, we always recommend that with the target maps, you have them named and ordered appropriately. Why? Because if you don't like the way that these are named and you don't like how they're ordered, well, you know, at the end of the day, that's how they're going to flow through to the report in the deliverable. So if you don't like how these are named, because the names flow through to each of the reports for target maps, you need to come to the target map section and you'll need to drag and drop to put them in the particular order that you want. And you can double click on the name to quickly rename them and click off to the side to save, or click the little ellipses button here and just click settings and you can rename it here. Okay. But you need to make sure that your target maps are named appropriately and that you've ordered them in the order that you would like. Therefore, when you move into the reports section, that's how they're going to be named and ordered. Okay, so just be mindful of that. While we do default on every single target map, you don't have to include them all because maybe you've ran like 10 or 12 target maps. It doesn't mean you want 10 or 12 of them to be included in the deliverable. No, it's up to you. So you can pick and choose between them. Like maybe I want to show the loss of lives and I want to show the 2 retirements. And if you're not familiar with target maps, in each target map, you can run a cash flow details report. You can choose to include the cash flow details report in your deliverable if you want to. So maybe I'm okay with including those for the 2 retirement scenarios, but I'm not interested in showing them for the other sections here. Okay. Next up is the notes report. If you're wondering what fuels the notes report, well, it's going to be this notes section on the left-hand side. From this notes area, you'll see any notes that you've entered for any of the members, entities, and/or instruments. Now, if you come to this section, there's no button that says add a new note. So if you're not familiar with notes, you might be saying, well, where do you even enter these notes? You're going to enter them here on the asset map report. Within every member or entity that you click into, there's a notes tab. It's a free text field. You can write out action items, next steps. You can type out websites and highlight them and create links. You cannot copy and paste. It will not save. Okay, but it's a free text field and you can go ahead and click update. Okay, so that's any member or entity. You can also click into any of the instruments. So like if I click into his 401k, click into the notes tab, you can use the notes section to write out intentional questions that you don't want to forget to ask. You could leave notes like what the employee contribution versus the employer matches. Okay. Again, any notes that are added for any of the instruments, that goes for income, cash flows, retirement, non-retirement, real estate liabilities, any of them. Okay, there's a notes tab. Same thing with entities, same thing with target maps. So like if I click into the target map section, okay, if I click into a target map, there is going to be a note section within each target map. You could log out, you can like log what your recommendations are going to be, or, you know, findings that you found to kind of summarize. Anything that is entered in the note section, it's going to flow through here to the interactive notes area. This will show you any note that was added for any member, entity, financial, and or target map. And all the notes that you see here, you can quickly click into them and make updates if you like to. You can also find these notes in the report section and you can include them as part of your deliverable. The system default is to not include the notes report because we don't know what you're using the notes section for. If you're using it for action items, next steps, client-facing comments, then okay, feel free to include it. Some people like to use the notes section for completely behind the scenes for like admin and note keeping and things like that. And if that's the case, then maybe you won't include it. You have to decide. Okay. We covered the 3 interactive reports that are available here as well. So you can click to include the balance sheet and then pick and choose which members and entities you want featured. Same thing with the policy summary. You could pick and choose which members you want featured. Like maybe we only want to focus on the primary client and spouse. Maybe same thing up here. Kind of keep it concise. Okay. Maybe for insurance, we'll keep all the topics turned on, whether they have it or not. We want to point it out, right? Maybe for the beneficiary report, again, let's just have a conversation about our primary client and spouse, okay? Because we're missing information for the other members. So maybe once we get that data, we can include those other members. Now, the remaining reports down below, member inventory is simply going to be the list of members and entities that have been added into the household. It's the same view that you see when you click into this section here. Financial inventory is just a list of all the financials that have been added in the application. So all the cash flows, assets, liabilities, okay, insurance. It's the same view that you see listed here. The Fact Finder Summary Report, now this gets fed information from a few different areas. And so once I show you what this report looks like, I'll show you where you can find, where you can enter some of that information. And I'm also going to include the financial fire drills report. So as we build our deliverable, I'm just going to start from the top and I'm going to pick and choose a couple things. So I'm going to have the cover page, the asset map report default, okay, along with the asset map report that's Neil side by side next to his mom. With the asset map report, this is the only report that you can override and pick if you want it to be in landscape or portrait, or allow the platform to pick. But as of now, this orientation option is only available for this one report. Okay. If you want to include the key financial figures, you can. That's just going to be the roll-up summary of the selections that you may or may not have opted into. If you don't know what I'm talking about, on the asset map report, the digital version down at the bottom, you can select up to 5 key financial figures to appear at the bottom of their report. We remind you that this is a roll-up summary of the entire household. So like, for example, income earned amount, it's not looking at just the primary client and spouse. It's looking at every single member and entity and any earned income that has been added. So you need to be aware of that. There's no way around that. That's how that tool and feature works. Okay. But you can select 5 to be listed at the bottom of the asset map report. And when you go to build your deliverable, you have to tell the software, do you want to include those 5 keynote or whatever, however many you can have up to 5. So if you only have 3 selected, it's fine. But you have to tell the platform to include that or not include it. Okay. I'm going to turn on the signals report. I'm going to turn off education funding. I'll turn on the cash flow details report for just the 2 retirement target maps. We'll include the notes report. We'll include the balance sheet. But for the balance sheet, we'll only have it be for the primary client and spouse, just for the sake of our example. For the policy summary, we'll have it be for just the primary client and spouse, but for all different types of insurance. For the beneficiary report, we'll have it be just for the client and spouse. Okay. We'll do the member inventory, the financial inventory, the fact finder summary, and the financial fire drills. The very last report that you're going to see is the disclosure. Some of you may have a few other reports depending on your access, but I'm not going to include those as of today. Okay, so if you scroll up to the top here, it'll tell you how many reports have been selected. Okay, and then it'll tell you what your estimated page count is. And then when ready, you can click generate report. Now this takes a moment. It'll open in a separate tab and it'll take a moment to generate. So while that's generating, to address the question in the chat, how do you select the key financial figures to appear on the bottom of the asset map report? You actually do it here from the household summary page, specifically the key financials tile. So you can select up to 5 to appear here on this summary tile, but you can also select 5 to appear on the bottom of the digital map. Where you're going to find that is by clicking here on the ellipses button and clicking edit key financial figures. From there, it'll open and you can select up to 5 boxes for the summary tile, which is the tile we saw on the household summary page. And you can select up to 5 boxes that'll appear at the bottom of the asset map report. You cannot pick more than 5. That's the limit as of today. So you can pick and choose them, and then you can click Save Settings here. Once you click Save Settings, then you can click Go Back to Household. When you click Go Back to Household, then you can check it by going to the digital map, verifying that the ones you've selected appear at the bottom. Then from there, you can go to the report section, and then you'd be able to choose to include it, yes or no. Now, as we're getting close to time, I'm going to go ahead and download this PDF. Once I download it, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for the group so that you can see. And we're going to go through these pages, okay? Number 1 is going to be the cover page. It'll have your logo. If you're an enterprise client, you may have it like pre-selected for you. You may not be able to change it. It just depends. And it'll have the household name, the month and the year, okay? And then it'll have your information as the lead advisor. If you need to make sure your contact information is up to date, where are you going to do that? Your user preferences section. So back here in Asset Map, click on your menu, go to user preferences, and make sure all of your contact information is up to date. Okay. Now, after the cover page will be the default asset map report, the primary client and the spouse featured in the middle. After that would be any additional asset map report layouts. So I chose to include the one with Neil side by side next to his mother. After that, if you selected the next report in line, it's the signals report. You can see it's very high level. It just shows their signals. Some of you that are enterprise clients, you might only have 5 signals instead of 6. That's just predetermined by your office. So if you only have 5, that's perfectly fine. Okay, those will be the 5 that you will speak to. After that, if you have target maps selected, if you have more than 1 target map included in your deliverable, we'll give you the target map summary page, which will show all the target maps that you have included side by side so you can summarize and have a nice conversation. After that, we'll break out each target map independently. So again, this is where naming criteria becomes important. So here's the first scenario, followed by the cash flow details report, because I opted to include that. So still the same scenario, just the cash flow details behind it. Then it's scenario number 2, different title, right? So again, naming criteria important. We do the summary page, and then we go into the cash flow details report. After that, I chose to include 2 additional target maps, a loss of life for Neil. So we're just going over the summary, and then a loss of life for Lauren. I did not choose to include the cash flow details report. That's why these 2 pages are standalone. After that, we have the notes report. So any notes that were added for members, entities, instruments, and target maps, if you choose to include this report, they're going to be listed here. And the great thing about when you type out websites is if you do have websites, you can actually click on the links in the PDF and it'll take you to that website, which is really nice. So if you're ever doing like a presentation digitally with this report pulled up, you could click on the links if you needed to. Okay. After that, we'll show the balance sheet. The balance sheet in the static view looks just like this. The only members that will be included are the ones that you selected when you chose to include this deliverable. After that, we'll have the policy summary. Again, based off of the types of insurance that you selected, we will illustrate those. If you remove one, that will be removed from view. And the only people that will be included are the people that you've chosen to include as part of the deliverable, which in this case was just the primary client and the spouse. Okay, after that, we're going to then move into the beneficiary checklist. So this shows you that if Neil was to pass away, it'll break out all of his beneficiaries and if anything is unassigned. Sometimes these individual beneficiary reports can extend 1 to 2 pages if there's a lot of assets. Next one will be the beneficiary checklist for Lauren. So if Lauren passes away, here's her unearned income, what's unassigned, what's been assigned. Same thing for assets, what's unassigned, what's been assigned. Okay, all of that will be listed here. The household member inventory report is just a list of the members and entities that have been added into the household. Anyone where we marked their birth date as estimated, their birthday will be marked in red, just as a reminder that you put an estimated birthday. After that, we have the financial inventory. This is a really great report. It just lists off all of the incomes, assets, liabilities, and insurances in this listed view. Okay. And it'll provide some additional information. Okay. Data collected is either when you manually entered that or updated it last. Okay. That's what that data collected date means. It just means that that's either when you physically entered this and you haven't touched it since, and you can update that within the details tab of these instruments if that's important for you to track. Now, the Fact Finder Summary Report is really popular, but I always make a point to point out this report because sometimes it's not super clear where we may be missing some information. Now, a lot of this information, like there's nothing for disability really besides one policy, and there's nothing for long-term care. That's simply because those instruments have not been added. You might notice that the work phone numbers are missing. Some of that has to be entered in their contact information. Okay, but specifically this section down at the bottom, investment experience, financial priorities, household risk preference, these kinds of things, the only way that these are going to get filled out is through this little hidden section in the application. I'm going to show you where it is today. When you go into the household itself, back on the map, if you click into a member in the details tab, this is where you can add in their address and or their work phone number and things like that. But if you go to the household summary page and next to the household name, you click edit, there's actually going to be a section here called investor profile. And investor profile is where you can fill out their investment years experience, their financial priorities, addressing taxes, and additional preferences. This manually has to be filled out, and this does not affect any of the analysis tools in Asset Map. The only place that this feeds through to is this report, the Fact Finder Summary Report, towards these bottom sections. Okay. All right, last couple of reports. Financial Fire Drills report can be found in every single household. If you're not leveraging this, I would encourage you to start. This is fantastic for new relationships. This is also great for clients you've had for some time as like a pre-annual review meeting like to do. Ask them what's the plan if these 6 critical life events take place. And they might say, yeah, if we have a liquidity problem, we've got emergency reserves of $20,000. Or they might say, I'm not concerned about long-term care because we've got, great health in our family. Or for loss of life, yes, we have insurance policies. Guess what? Whether or not they have a plan in place, this report gives you permission to go run target maps. So if you're somebody who's like, well, they've only come to me and asked me for help for retirement, they're not asking about insurance or, long-term care or any of that. Well, that doesn't matter. Like, we can still ask them, do you have a plan? And if you don't have a plan, guess what? I'm going to be the first person to go test if there's going to be a problem if it happens, because I owe that to you. If there is a problem, I owe it to you to point it out. The other thing is, just because you have a plan in place doesn't mean that that plan's going to work. And I'm your quarterback. I'm your financial quarterback, right? I'm not only your coach, but I'm playing on the field with you, and I'm going to make sure that we're looking at all these things. So, really great report. This is something you can have them download, fill out. You could print it off, have them fill it out in office, sign and date it. It's a great CYA, right? Cover your butt. And then, of course, you've got your disclosure report. All right. So that's all the reports we have available in Asset Map. Like I said, you can pick and choose which ones you want to include to generate that report. Some of you, depending on your level of access, you might even have report history where you can see some of the reports that you've generated in the past. Again, some of you that are enterprise clients, this might be something that's under compliance reviews, so it may not be something you have available now. And I can't make any promises of it being made available in the future, but it's certainly something that we always work towards. But for some of you that are not our enterprise clients, you likely have this report history section. This is where you'll be able to look back at some of your past related reports that you've ran for this given household. For a lot of you, it's a 30-day look back, and then depending on your level of access, it might be indefinite. So if you're like on our elite level subscription, for example, you have unlimited report history. So any report that you generate, we store it basically back here on the back end so that you can re-access it if you need to. Again, if you're an enterprise client, hopefully this is coming down the road for you. We're working diligently with compliance teams to hope to get things like this approved. So please just be patient and stay tuned if that's the case. Okay, now I do want to engage the group for just a moment, and I'd love to know, do you love Asset Map? So I've posted something, a poll on the screen. If you love Asset Map, would you be willing to leave us an honest review? If you love Asset Map and you would be willing to leave a moment, to say, hey, I love Asset Map. I love, the features, the functionality. It simplifies my process. I love the support that's available. Thank you for those of you that are saying yes. I'm going to post a link in the chat. You're welcome to click on that, and you can feel free to do that as well. As we start to wrap up, the last couple things I want to point out before we wrap up today is just a little bit of a hidden gem is in that discovery section when you're leveraging the Discovery Fact Finder tool, which is a link that you send to a lead or a prospect or a new client. Anytime somebody comes through that Discovery Fact Finder and we create a household off of it, there's going to be this report that's available. This report only lives, I'll end this poll so it gets out of the way. Thank you to those of you that said yes. Okay, when you navigate to the discovery section, if you look at a lead that's come through your discovery, there's a little hidden report here that summarizes everything that they entered and selected. Now, this report only lives here in the discovery section. So if I click generate report, it'll download it onto my computer and I can open it up. I like to use this report as I'm prepping for that prospect or new client to come in because number one, this is one of the only places I can see how long it took them to fill out that digital fact finder. It also helps me spot very early on if things might be missing. Like you said, you had investments, you said you had life insurance. There's no investments or life insurance added. Okay, so probably didn't have all the statements, and considering they did this in 4 minutes, probably don't have all the data, but that's okay. This is also one of the only places where if you have access within your Discovery Fact Finder for them to leave you comments, if they leave you comments, it'll be listed here. Again, for some of our clients that might have been turned off by your institution. So just be mindful of that, okay? But a little bit of a hidden gem report, not one that I necessarily think you'll use live in front of your clients, but certainly a way to help you prepare for those prospective client meetings if you're leveraging this section. All right, so let's talk about some next steps as we wrap up today. We did a poll already. Please always be on the lookout for upcoming Accelerate Series webinars. Our next one will be taking place in September. Again, I'm thinking in terms of topic, I'm going to focus on some of our analysis tools, but this actually brings me to a final poll that I would like to ask the group, specifically in regards to what you'd like to see additional training on. In regards to Asset Map, like what are other topics and areas that you'd like to learn more about? This is a free text field, so please just take a moment and type anything out. You can separate things by commas. You can say, want to learn more about target maps, want to learn more about signals, want to learn more about marketing Asset Map, leveraging discovery as like a pre-meeting requisite. Take a second to fill that out. Other than that, please just stay tuned for upcoming events. One thing I will mention is that Once a quarter, we offer an incredible training, which is our Asset Map Virtual Boot Camp. We just concluded our August boot camp about almost 2 weeks ago. Can't believe it's already passed that far. A lot of you on today's call, I think, actually attended that. So they know the power of boot camp. Right now, we just launched our November boot camp. So if you'd like to, you can feel free to just click on the link to learn more. We haven't launched early bird pricing yet, which is 35% off. So because we haven't done that, I'm giving everybody here an extra little treat. And for a very limited time, I think it's only like a week I can offer it. I'm going to offer everybody 50% off. So if you want to come to a virtual boot camp in November, it's the 19th through 21st. You can come to just day 1 or just day 2 and day 3, which is our more advanced session broken up. Check out the website. See if it's something that you'd like to learn more about. We'd love to have you there. Other than that, that is all I have for us today. So I will go ahead and hang on the line here, and I will read any final questions that we missed or have outstanding, and I'll get those answered for the group. Other than that, if you're going to jump off, the very last thing I'll just ask is if you could take 2 seconds to fill out this 2-question survey. Just let me know what you thought of today's training. I do take feedback very seriously. Some feedback from the last couple sessions was moving too quickly. So I really tried today to work at a little bit of a slower pace. Hopefully that was appreciated by the group. And of course, when you watch the recording back, you can speed it up or slow it down a little if you need to. Other than that, thank you so much for your time and your dedication. I look forward to seeing you at future trainings. If you need to jump, have a great rest of your day. And if you'd like to hang on and ask questions, now's a good time to add it in the chat. Thanks, everybody.